Sekiro is one of the hardest and greatest games ever created. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, released by FromSoftware in 2018, does something no other Souls game has ever dared to do before it. In Sekiro, you can't just grind in order to level up in order to finally beat that boss you've been struggling on. Sekiro demands one thing, and that is for you to get good. Sekiro demands all of your focus and all of your attention, just for the chance to beat the game. Because in Sekiro, hesitation is defeat. Wolfus took it in as an orphan of war by great Shinobi Owl, and is told one thing that shapes his entire identity. Never forget the Shinobi Code. As your father, my word is absolute. Your master's is a close second. As of today, he is your master. Defend him with your life. If he is taken, bring him back at any cost. This code isn't just important to him. It defines his entire identity. As you start your journey to get back your master Kuro, the divine heir, fulfilling the code that defines your whole entire identity, the game introduces you to the greatest combat system ever developed. While other games like Elden Ring and Bloodborne mainly consist of you narrowly dodging enemies' attacks while giving a small hit of your own. And by rolling and rolling and hitting, eventually you'll take down the boss. But in Sekiro, you face every attack head on, draining the enemy's posture bar in order to land a death blow that could take down an entire health bar. And learning this combat system is most of the difficulty in early Sekiro. Once that combat system clicks, you could steamroll through most of the game. But while you're still getting used to the combat system, this game feels genuinely impossible. You spend hours at the starting areas dying over and over and over again just to barely scratch the surface of this game's contents. Eventually, the pieces start falling together and you learn the importance of deflecting. And you still die over and over and over again because you haven't perfected it yet. I mean, this game is so hard, you get 2 lives every time you go into battle. And you could just revive and go right back to fighting. And die again. After beating your first 2 main game bosses, you can finally take on the gauntlet that is Isshin Castle. And once you eventually reach the top, the greatest skill check I have ever seen stands before you. Genichiro, the man that you had your seemingly scripted loss to at the start of the game. He stole your master away from you and challenged your very identity. He wishes to use the divine heir's blood to reach the immortality that you have and restore Isshin to its former glory. And to save your master and fulfill the code that defines your very identity, you must get through him first. But before this, let's talk for a minute. Is Sekiro even a Souls game? And my personal answer to that is yes. For me, being a Souls game is 1, being a Souls-like, and 2, being developed by FromSoftware and Miyazaki. And Sekiro is obviously developed by FromSoftware, but is it a Souls-like? For me, being a Souls-like isn't having levels or an expansive lore or anything of the sorts. It's having one set difficulty option, and most importantly, the Souls mindset. Souls-likes want you to rage. They want you to quit. They say, you cannot beat me. You do not have what it takes. And it dares you to prove them wrong. When Sekiro starts you off and you have to learn its new combat system, it says you don't have what it takes. You cannot learn this new combat system and you can't beat this game. And for most people, they're right. Most people that play these Souls games and spend money on them and their time don't make it through to the end. And Sekiro is no different, especially with this fight with Genichiro. Genichiro is a wall, both in the game and to the player. In the game, Genichiro is a wall from getting you to Kuro and fulfilling your identity. But to the player, Genichiro stands as a wall to keep continuing the game. If you want to see the rest of this game and you truly think you have what it takes, get through him. Once again, Sekiro insists that it can't be beaten and dares you to prove them wrong. And as you die over and over again and probably spend hours on this fight like I did, you're eventually going to adapt. And this, to most players, is the point where Sekiro finally clicks. It shouldn't have taken most players to find out that dodging is almost useless in this game, and deflecting is the most important thing in this entire game, even more so than your own attacks. But spamming your deflect over and over again in a panic will drain your posture meter, preventing you from deflecting, resulting in your death over and over and over again. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you're able to perfect parry, and you finally drain Genichiro's 2 health bars. And you think back to the first time you fought him at the start of the game. That fight at the start of the game wasn't impossible. You just simply weren't ready for it yet. Because Sekiro isn't like the other Souls games. It's not like Elden Ring where you could grind and you have levels and you have stats and different builds that you could use. Sekiro just needs you to get good at the game. And then out of nowhere, he has a third phase where he throws lightning at you and you get the tutorial for deflecting and reversing the lightning back at him while you're getting hit with the lightning. But eventually, after dying who knows how many times and probably spending hours on this fight, you'll eventually stab Genichiro in the throat for the 3rd time. And you finally tear down that wall and are given hope to beat the game. Just for him to come back to life, jump off a building, to run it back later. Now, Sekiro is obviously hard, but how hard is it really? After beating Genichiro, you have the whole combat system understood. Now, unlike games like Elden Ring and Bloodborne, where in Elden Ring the game gets harder as you go along, and in Bloodborne it has an incredibly difficult DLC, Sekiro's main difficulty stops after you understand the combat system. However, you have not perfected the combat system, and you still got a long way to go. Now look, I'm not good at video games. I'm actually horrible at them. I always tell my friends when we play. But have they beat Elden Ring? No. Have they beaten Bloodborne and its DLC? No. Have they beaten Sekiro? No. But are they better than me at Elden Ring Nightrun? Maybe. But seriously, beating a game like this is a serious accomplishment. As I said before, Souls games try and make you quit, and most of the time they're successful. Only 28% of all players have beaten the true final boss of this game. And only slightly above 50% have players beaten the first boss in the entire game. But after beating Genichiro, Wolf starts to form his very own identity. Kuro asks you to help him sever the threads of immortality. Doing this would require you of eventually killing your own master, which would break the Iron Code. As part of Wolf's whole identity is to defend his master with his life. But after a little bit of reasoning, Wolf is eventually convinced. Eventually you meet Lord Isshin, who tells you this.
忘れるでないぞ。迷えば破れる.
When Isshin tells you hesitate, you lose, I don't think he's talking to Wolf right here. He's talking to you. Because in order to beat the game going forward, it's not going to be about the basic combat system anymore. It's going to be about mastering it. And if you hesitate, you die. On your journey to help Kuro sever the threads of immortality, you fight a bunch of bosses in different areas. You fight some silly little monkeys. You fight a funny little dancing monk. You fight an ape, which after you brutally decapitate, it picks up its own head and attempts to kill you. This boss elevates your gameplay to another level. I believe these 3 bosses in this section of the game is just meant to make you even better at this combat system. Fighting a wild and unpredictable boss like this helps prepare you for what's coming next. And what comes next is fighting your own father. Owl turns out to be alive and shows up at Ashina Castle. As Isshin gets up there in age and is expected to die any day, people wait outside for him to die so they could take over Ashina. They wait for an old, frail man to die to take over Ashina. That's how cool Isshin was. You are given a choice. Owl wants to kill Isshin and take over Ashina with you, and he could only ever do it with you. Or you could stay loyal to Kuro and help him sever the threads of immortality. And Wolf finds his own identity and breaks the Iron Code to stay loyal to Kuro. An identity or a code is determined by the individual. As Wolf declares to be his own person, his father that took care of him all of his life draws his sword, ready to kill him. Wolf defends himself and his new identity that he formed. Your father's word is absolute, is what Wolf has heard throughout his entire life, with his master's being a close second. but Wolf says his is absolute. And this fight, it's pretty hard. While this boss is not as hard as Genichiro, the game still challenges you. The game acknowledges how far that you have come and says to you, you're not perfect. I cannot be beaten despite everything that you have done. To beat me is to be perfect, and you're far from it. And upon killing your own father, you build and create your own identity. While going to collect the last piece that you need to help sever the threads of immortality, this is where Isshin's words really spoke to me. Now that you have almost perfected the combat system, you still die quite a bit. And the reason why I died so much was because I hesitated. I would hesitate whether to stay on the offensive or go back to the defensive. I would hesitate whether to Makiri counter or jump because I didn't know if it was a sweep or a thrust attack. All this hesitation that I was facing while fighting the true monk was what led to my multiple deaths. The game is dangling the idea and concept of perfection right in front of your face, and then slaps you every time you think about grabbing
Raised in a broken and abusive household.
This chicken is cold!
You get to the second to last boss of this game, and it's a giant dragon. Nah, it's actually like the easiest boss in the whole game. And we finally arrive to the peakest moment in gaming history. Kuro waits for us to sever the threads of immortality at the flower bed we started the game at. Ashina is in ruins, as Lord Isshin is dead. You come face to face with Genichiro, ready to run it back. This is your final duel for the fate of Ashina, to redeem yourself for all those hours ago at the start of the game when you lost to him. And you absolutely whoop him! He isn't built for this! The game shows you how good you are, and that you're just one step behind perfection. And that step is really, really, really big. After defeat, Genichiro admits that he wasn't strong enough to fulfill his dream. To restore Ashina to its former glory, he wasn't strong enough to get it done. And he sacrifices his own immortality to bring back somebody else. The man he brings back is the greatest swordsman to ever live at his very prime. The one man that is capable of fulfilling Genichiro's dream. His very own grandfather, the sword saint, Isshin. He crawls out of his grandson's body and faces you. To fulfill his grandson's last wish to return Ashina from the great beyond, he must kill you. And to fulfill Wolf's greatest wish to help Kuro sever the threads of immortality, you must kill him. The two strongest people in history face each other to determine the fates of the people they love the most. And you die. A lot. This is by far the hardest boss that you have ever fought. The game demands perfection from you in order to beat this final boss. While I did struggle against Radagon and Elden Beast in Elden Ring, it was nothing like this. In fact, I first tried Gurman and the Moon Presence in Bloodborne. This, beyond any boss, was on a whole nother level. Even me dying probably 200 times to Malekith, this was on another level. Even to me dying over and over and over again to Lawrence and Bloodborne, it doesn't hold a candle to Isshin. And I can confidently say, this is the hardest boss and greatest boss that I've ever fought. And every single time you die in this fight, one phrase is hammered into your head. Hesitation is defeat. If you hesitate in this fight, you die. To hesitate is to be imperfect, and to beat this boss, you must be perfect. The game, for a final time, tells you that you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes, and dares you to try and beat the game. Right at the end, minutes away from beating it, many people quit. I spent nearly 7 hours on this boss fight. Except I wasn't mad. Every time that Isshin killed me, I felt like he deserved it. While the game tries to make you quit, it does so while looking at you with a sort of respect. It respects you for making it this far, and it will respectfully make you quit. And only a quarter of the game's player base will make it to the end. I absolutely love bosses like Malekith, but Malekith made me rage. Isshin is so cinematic and so good of a boss that it doesn't make me rage despite being the hardest boss I've ever fought. You learn his attack patterns and eventually you'll be able to make it to the final phases. And once you drain his first health bar, he pulls a spear and a gun out to fight you. Where did he even get that from? And as he pulls out his spear, he says something that defines his entire character. How my blood boils. Face me, Sekiro. Previously, Isshin fought to fulfill his grandson's wish of returning Ashina from the great beyond. But now he faces you in excitement of what comes next. One of the strongest people in history will die tonight. Isshin isn't fighting to fulfill his grandson's final wish, he's fighting to fulfill his. Part of him wants Wolf to kill him. He wants to die to fulfill his greatest wish, but he's gonna make you work for it. It's just like Isshin. No, the game wants you to beat it now, but it's gonna make you work for it and potentially quit in the process. And just like that, no matter how long it took, no matter if it took you 1 try or 1,000, no matter if it took you 1 hour or 10, we finally arrive at the run that you beat Sword Saint Isshin. This moment feels magical. You're that close to beating the game, and every time you inch forward with determination. And eventually you get to the 3rd phase, and you start sweating, your legs get shaky as you realize this could be it. You lock into another level that you haven't even reached before. And you face your final run without hesitation. You have become perfect. And you face the final moments of this game in the most beautiful, cinematic, and greatest way possible.
Within the inner heart I plead for you to talk to me. I wanna hear all the good and bad, the new stories you had. As I drift across the sky, the hour hand turns high. So good night, let me sing a lullaby. I'll be singing.
After dealing the final blow, Isshin, despite being immortal, lets you take your victory. After all the pain you've been through, all the deaths, and all the hours you spent getting here, the game that tried to make you quit, the game that insisted that it could not be beaten, congratulates you on your victory, and lets you take your victory over the game. And after everything the game threw at you, you proved it wrong. No matter what ending you choose, Wolf has found his own identity. You either fulfill the wish of Kuro and sever the threads of immortality, give up your own life in return for Kuro's, or do whatever the secret ending is. You beat the game that insisted that it can never be beaten.